Hey, how's everybody doing today? Hey, this is admin from plexguide.com. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick video on understanding NZBs, a little bit about news groups. So I do have some demonstrations and some programs. So back in the day, I used news groups a long time ago. And so, if you look up things about news groups, you'll notice that there's pretty much a long history about how news groups work and what they are. So, for example, you can go here to Wikipedia, and it'll give you like all kinds of information. And I remember when I first tried to learn about news groups, I was very confused. And this was just way back in the day. They talked about all these binaries and all of these things, and I just couldn't really understand it. But what I got to learn is that the purpose of news groups was pretty much to share out information. So this was used back then in the day, like with colleges that were able to post files. Sometimes it was difficult to post larger items on the internet. So news groups had pretty much broken down files that could be reconstructed and composed. And yeah, news groups are just very interesting. So news groups are starting to pick up a lot because of torrents becoming an issue, streaming services becoming an issue. News groups also do provide a secure download through SSL. And so if you have any questions about any of the news groups, you can feel free to join us on our forum. And then also our wiki will also explain how to configure these news groups, because it was something that overwhelmed me a little bit. So there's two primary programs that we'll use here for this example right now. So we'll use Sonarr. Sonarr can be used for torrents and news groups. And we got NZBGET, which is solely for news groups. You're probably used to uTorrent or transmission and all those other programs. These programs can be a little overwhelming at first, depending on what you're trying to do, but in actuality, it's pretty simple in what you want to accomplish. So I created a PowerPoint and I pushed it to an Adobe PDF. So basically to give you a little bit of a picture of what's going on when you try to run these programs and configure it. So right now, obviously, you see the big PlexGuide logo and terminal here. And the reason for that is because this is basically what we're doing. We have our program loaded up. So let me go ahead and shrink this window down. The only thing about terminal is that when a window's a certain size, it sticks to that size. So I'll just go type sudo plexguide. And basically this was set up from VMware. If you watched my VMware video for VMware Fusion, this is the same install that everything is running from. So in order to deploy the programs that we're using today, we're going to go to Programs, and we're going to go to NZB, and you can deploy NZBGET. You can also choose to deploy XAB NZBD. This was my Starling favorite back in the day. I still tend to test it out every once in a while. It tends to leave leftover files, but I tend to use NZBGET. We put NZB Hydra here. I haven't used them really, but I know it's popular for people. But again, we do have our wikis to help explain these. For the short time, what I'll do is I'll deploy XAB NZBD. So we can, show you a little bit of an alternate down the road. And you can see Ansible kicking off everything for you here, so you don't really have to mess with this program. Okay, so the first thing is in using the NZB process, we're going to first use Sonarr. So I remember the first time I dealt with Sonarr, I'm like, oh, what's this? This is, pretty cool. But I didn't really understand how to configure it, not for the torrents or the NZBs. So basically what you have to do is you need to first configure Sonarr to talk to NZBGET or XAB, which is the alternate. NZBGET's pretty straightforward. With XAB, you got to use the API key, which is not difficult, but the point is you got to make sure that the programs are talking to one another. So Sonarr needs to communicate with NZBGET. So the way we accomplish this here is we go to Settings, and you're going to look for a thing called not index or download client, right? And so what a lot of people don't understand about NZBs, which I should cover really fast, is that because we got to talk about the indexer. So this is the part I remember that when I first tried to learn about NZBs, I was like this to this, but I didn't really understand this piece. So you kind of notice I caught myself about the indexes earlier. So Sonarr is going to talk to your indexers. And so the best way to explain these people is that these are the people that are like the treasure map people. It's the best way I can explain what an indexer is. It's like the Googles of the files. So typically with your torrents, it would be something like this talks to this, this being Sonarr and this being uTorrent. This talks to this, it downloads the file, and then it just post-processing this. But in NZBs, you have this extra step right here. So indexers are blind to the files that are being downloaded. So basically, let's say you wanted to share out, I don't know, Bob's movie or whatever. So what's going to happen is the person's going to break down the file into, let's just make it simple, 100 pieces, right? What it is the treasure map that's created gets submitted to all the indexers, right? So if you hear of indexers like dog, NZB Geek, like some of those indexers, those are basically the companies that maintain the treasure maps. The actual files get sent to various companies. So let me show you here. So I have 5 that I would recommend. So News Hosting is the one that I love with a passion, and I use the Usenet server as a secondary. The other 3 are pretty good. So depending on what you're trying to obtain, sometimes it's good to have more, news groups, depending on what you're trying to do. So strategy is you sign up for like 2 or 3 at the beginning if you're mass building your collection, and then over time you can ease it down to 1 or maybe 2. Again, news hosting is a darling of mine because I've seen it download at 150 megabytes or bits, the big MB, and saturate past a gig connection with wholesale internet. So I use news hosting. I love them. It obtains like almost everything that I need. But when you're first starting off, it's best to probably take this and then combine it with that. In rare cases, if you're trying to find unique material, it's maybe best to even get a third one. It's up to you. So, for example, you would sign up with news hosting, and basically you would plug them in NZBGET. So, but anyways, let's look back at this chart here. It's really easy to talk all over the place. So right now, we have Sonarr, and then you're gonna have an indexer. So for example, let's see, let's talk about indexers. So for example, you can type NZB indexers. And a good group to go to is actually the Usenet Reddit right here, which I found very helpful. So if you go here, they have a list of indexers that you can use. So it looks like they have some different ones I haven't seen, but NZB Planet is pretty good because they had a lifetime offering. Sometimes the lifetime ones are just good to get that, and NZB Geek had lifetime, and they truly honor it. They're not companies that shut down. You pay a little bit more upfront, but then you don't got to keep paying the monthly, not monthly, but yearly fee. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Sonarr right here, and you're going to go to indexers, and here's your list of indexers. And usually they help you out too. See, they have a pre-built list of ones you can, also go find on the internet. So for example, there's NZB Geek I mentioned and NZB Planet. And so what you would do here is you would basically just put the API key in. You really don't got to mess with the categories, maybe unless you're doing anime. I never really dealt with it too much. There's these category numbers. You can just Google those if you need to. But basically, when you go to nzbgeek.info, so let's go here. NZB Geek info, and there, let's see, there's the company here. So basically you're going to go ahead and register, and when you get into the site, after you register, you're going to get an API key, which is pretty simple. You don't have to do nothing else on that site. That's it. You just plug in the API key. So once you do that, you're going to hit test, and right now I don't have anything, so it's not going to work. And you'll be good to go. So you'll start seeing multiple ones. It's usually, now ideally for indexers, it's good to have 2 or 3 of them. But off the bat, I would say NZB Geek, NZB Planet. There's harder ones to get into, like Dog. If you do some research on the Usenet site. So let's see here. I always leave the retention alone. But basically, that's basically your indexer. So you can sign up for multiple ones. Let's see. So you got Dog, NZB, you got Drunken Slug. You can pay off the bat. I think they're yearly, but they're pretty cheap. So like you can type NZB Planet. NZB Planet, and you can go here, and it's the same thing. You have a username, you sign in, you get an API key, and their prices aren't too bad. They do a pretty good job, so it's even good to donate a little to them if you enjoy it, if you got the money for it. So, usually money's tight definitely if you're coming over from torrents because you're like, oh, I'm spending a little bit of money. But like I said, when you're doing torrents, you're spending money on the VPN with news groups and all that stuff. You don't need the VPN, so you're saving money there. And then people are using private torrents. You got to do a lot of sharing, and you still pay some money in some cases. So you might as well just go the whole um, news group route. Okay, so let me check back on my chart here. So I have my sanity check. So we showed the indexers. So for example, Bob's movie, whatever, right? Sonar's, well, this is TV shows, but again, let's say, oh, Bob's TV show. So the indexer will say, hey, let's say NZB Geek says, hey, I have Bob's TV show, right? So the cool thing is unlike torrents, you can do seasons, but the indexer is like, hey, I got the entire season for you. And Sonarr is like, okay, I got it. So Sonarr then takes that entire season, the treasure map that we talked about earlier, and then talks to NZBGET and says, hey, NZBGET, I have this treasure map. I need you to talk to your news group servers, and I need you to download all these random files. So the random files have a crazy naming scheme. It's almost kind of like the concept of torrents with the pieces, but you'll notice it. You'll see, if you deal with NZBGET, you'll see it talking about pieces, sometimes missing, and basically what it does is NZBGET downloads all those files. So here's NZBGET. And what we did for you to make life easy for you is we pretty much, when you deploy NZBGET, everything's pretty much set up for you with our PlexSky program, so you don't have to deal with much. The only thing you really have to do is pretty much set up your servers here. So for example, like when we're looking at, let's say, news hosting, right? So you're going to take your news hosting information, right? So let's say you sign up for newshosting.com. And like I said, click the link there. There's a great discount for you. Let's see here. Sometimes I get all over the place. Okay, so the server name is basically what you would type. It's just, there you go, like news hosting, right? So this is just a description for you. So it's not something that really matters. It doesn't affect everything. Sometimes people get caught up on a name here and forget what to put below. You leave the server level 0, leave the optional stuff. This is back in the day. So this is the critical piece right here. This is what really matters. So if you do news.newshosting, you fill in your information there. The port, you're going to either put 563 or you're going to put 443. And these are your secure ports. So basically, when you're downloading these files, it's all secure. You don't have to worry about the VPN aspect. So because I didn't know better and I did a VPN, it makes no sense because all you're doing is slowing down your connection, and so it's like double secure. If you're paranoid, hey, go for it. But as we all know, if somebody really wants to target you, they can get you. And then these two fields are important. This is your username and this is your password that you sign up from the sites. So you fill out your username, you fill out your password. You can leave this join group alone. Now here, don't forget this. If you're going to turn 443 or 563 on, you're going to go ahead and turn this on, right? And then your server connection. So for example, news hosting, I believe is 30 or 40. I can't remember. But what you need to do is you need to always put about 3 under, sometimes maybe 4 under from the max. Because if you don't, let's say news hosting offers you 40 and you decide to put 40. What happens is sometimes there are connections that break that attempt to reconnect. And what it does is news hosting is now tracking you being at 41 and 42 and 43. So what happens is your downloads are kind of stalled and you're starting to have issues. You'll start seeing like the error. I wish when I sign up for these sites, even when they tell you the number of connections you got, they just say, hey, warning, put 35 as recommended 35. Nobody really tells you that anywhere. Usually you'll be stomped when it says too many connections. Like I said, you can go ahead and try it out and be brave, but I would always recommend to do 3 under. What I learned too is that this connections thing is misleading. As long as you got a certain amount of connections, it's going to download fast, because what people fail to forget is that it really depends on the number, the bandwidth of each connection you're getting. So you're going to have 100 connections and still download slow, because it's all dependent on your internet speeds. And so once you're done, you're going to hit save changes. So right now, I don't have a proper news group configured here for you, but I think you get the idea. The categories are pretty much preset for you, so you don't have to mess with this. a lot of it's been set. What I tell people in the guide is to make sure to set the time. So you can set it to download every 30 minutes, and then do unpause, because what's going to happen is your stuff is going to start to backlog, and what you want to happen is you want to go to download queue. You want to set your disk to be like, hey, don't go below. You don't want it to go below 25 gigs. Gets me every single time. Was it download queue? Article, direct write buffer. Right here, disk space. So you're going to set this to like 25,000. So that'll leave you like 25 gigs. Because you got to remember, when your files are downloaded, let's look at our picture here. When your files are downloaded, they're sitting in all that mass junk that's downloaded. It's still got to unpack. It's got to combine all the files together and then unpack itself and create a file. So if you have 25 megabytes of space and you're like, well, even though I have 25 megabytes of space, I should be good. So, it should post-process, go to storage, and I'm good to go, right? No, because you have to have Sonar is going to take all those files, which is this post-processing here. It's going to take all those little files and combine them together. Once it combines them together, it's going to unzip it, create the files for you, and toss out all the trash. So that's why it is important that you have a certain amount of disk space left. And then also, if you're using the Google Drive, you have a 750 gig cap daily. So what's going to happen is you're going to start ending up with a backlog. But this is the reason why we had this, pausing, unpausing thing. So you're saying, hey, when it pause at 25 gigs, and then every 30 minutes I want you to unpause, because as space frees up, it starts re-downloading and it just keeps hitting the 25 gig trigger. So if you do that, you're pretty much good to go. You don't have to deal with the paths, because this is all configured for you. And usually this is another challenge when you deal with NZBGET. ZAB is a little bit more friendly. So let's see if ZAB deployed. ZAB is a little bit more pretty, as I tell everybody. Oops, not 89. Trying to think what I had ZAB as. It's been a while. 8090, okay. Because like I said, this used to be my darling program. So there's ZAB, and then it's going to ask you for a thing. Obviously you can just put some bogus information if you just need to get it started, and then you need to do 8090 again, and it'll take you here. So technically ZAB and NZBGET are almost the same thing. So again, this is a virtual machine, so for testing purposes, so there's not a lot of space here. It's just a test. So it's the same concept. The interface is more pretty, don't get me wrong, but what happens is NZBGET is better at cleaning up your files. So same thing, username, password, connections, and again, it's really nice on the eyes. You do the same thing with the categories. It does have, I think the options are a little cleaner here, so it says what you want to do. But again, NZBGET is better about not leaving trash behind, in my experience. And again, this should change up, so this is something you can do down the road. Yeah, and there's the interface. So as your stuff comes in, you'll see it download and post-process the same way NZBGET does. So let's go ahead and exit this, because this is no longer needed. So in our process, show hit Sonar, talks to Indexer, and Indexer's like, yep, I got the treasure map for you. And it goes back up to Sonar, and then Sonar's like, hey, NZBGET, which you configure here, which is the download client, and we should be able to add NZBGET. So the name can be whatever, and then you can do. It's best to do the IP address because of these Docker containers. You always want to do the IP address. So you're gonna be like, oh, localhost. No, it's not gonna work, and it's gonna upset you a little bit. Let's see. Well, maybe I might have to go back to it. To 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Security. You know what? I think it was user. Security. Oh, okay. And again, this is my test, so I haven't really fully set it up correctly. If it doesn't work, it's fine, but I think you get the concept. Okay, so you see it working now. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now that NZBGET is configured, um, as we were looking at our chart here, um, Sonarr will talk to NZBGET. NZBGET will then download all the random files that we were talking about earlier, and then Sonarr will then post-process it. So what Sonarr does is here, let me see, let's go back here. See media management, you're going to say rename episodes, so that's something you always want turned on. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to rename your episodes, again, part of that post-processing, and it's going to rename everything, and you'll be good to go. So once the post-processing is done, it's going to go hit your storage. So wherever you decided to set the show at. So like, let's say, I don't have anything configured here, but like, let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, we're not going to download anything, but this will do a proper search. But right here, there's a path that you have to select. And again, this is not all configured because, you know, the purpose of this video is to show you how it works. But technically, you would set it to Mount Union FS. So, which I don't know if it's configured for demonstration purposes here. Union FS. Yeah, so it's not configured for the purpose of this video. So that's something you have to do. But once you do that, you put Mount Union FS, you put your path here, and you pick what you want. You're good to go. So it will then move it to the proper location for you. So it will move all your stuff to your Google Drive, and it'll put it in your proper location. So you go to root, then you go to /TV, and then it'll be /your TV show, and then /the season, and then /the name. Once it's there, Plex is going to go ahead and scan it, and you're pretty much good to go. So NZBs aren't as confusing as they are cut out to be. If you just follow the wiki, and then you probably, you know, you can hit up our forums and you can look at the Usenet, Reddit. You'll be able to navigate it. But again, it's because of the speeds, the security, the efficiency, how fast it grabs everything. You don't have to deal with the private sharing, and I don't know. It's just you know, you're being tracked. It's just, there's a lot of headaches that go with it. So, you know, if you get a decent, you know, like for example, like news hosting and like 2 indexers, it can run you like, you know, about 10 to 15 a month. But again, you know, you're not paying for the VPN, and you're not paying for you know, just all the other things like the private trackers, and then, you know, it gives you a little bit more peace of mind. So that's pretty much it. So if you, like I said, you can just download the program, and like I said, you can download any of the programs that you need and execute it with Plex Guide. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be of use before I leave here. I know my counterpart did an update to help you check for your disk space. So let's see if it comes up here. And I should put it under info troubleshoot. Maybe information. Oh yeah, look at that. She is awesome. So here is NZBGET. So I think it's going to tell you how much disk space it's taking. Oh, it really works nicely. Good job. Yeah. So you got to hit Control-C to get out of it. I think that's the only thing we may have to put in there. So there's Zab. So this is good. It will tell you what's eating all the space. I'm proud of her. But other than that, hey, we hope to see you on Plex Guide. You know, just join our community. You know, I just go through these videos. You know, please like, share, comment. You know, do all that good stuff to help spread our community. You know, here's more YouTube videos and links. Because, you know, my goal is to educate you to become a better coder / user, and the more you know, the more you can help everybody else. I appreciate your time, and I think that is it.